This is for the players.
I'm Ryan Betson.
I'm Max Cooper.
And this is For the Players, the PopCulturists PlayStation podcast. Over 40 years of playing PlayStation and 5+ years, and that games media combined. I'd like to thank you for joining us in this remote conversation.
This PlayStation conversation happens every Monday morning at 8 a.m. on podcast services and 9 a.m. on the YouTubes. If you'd like to join in future PlayStation conversations, head on over to our Facebook, Discord, Twitter, Instagram. All the links are in the description below.
If you want to join us live as it happens and also hear our tech support, head over to twitch.tv/thepopculturist, where, as I said, you can watch us record this show live. Sometimes Dash calls us in and be like, hey, this is how you fix a thing. I'm like, can I fix it later? And he's like, it's going to take a second. I'm like, yeah, but can I do it now? Like, can I do it a little bit later? And it's all good from there. But as I said, you can watch us record this show live, as well as our other show, The Young and the Wrestlers. We do that both now remotely because of current circumstances. And if Max gets a $1,600 fine for coming to visit my house, I can't fucking pay for that. So we have to go remote. But anyways, if you one thing we'd like you to do is just share the conversation, tell your friends, tell your family about this little PlayStation podcast, and maybe then they too will enjoy it. Go to your podcast services, give 5-star ratings, etc., etc. And I know it's rough right now, but if you want to support us financially, head over to patreon.com/thepopculturist, as well as our merchandise store, popculturist.com/shop, where you can buy shirts and other assorted shit with our logos on it. And Max, we actually had a merch sale this week. Well, they come through ever so occasionally, and I've frozen on the video, which is awesome. Thanks, video. Let me because Camlink never has a problem, and then suddenly it decides to have a problem right when I'm recording. Thanks. But yeah, there's a shirt that we did when we bullshitted once about the Great Emu War, and there's a shirt that came with that, and someone picked it up. So,
oh, nice.
Emu War, one of the greatest Australian stories to ever literally happen.
Sure.
Are you aware of the Emu War?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
There is a time. I know it's not PlayStation related, but I was
going to say solid PlayStation content. Let's talk about the Emu Wars.
The Emu War was a war that Australia fought literally with emus, right? Happened twice.
Okay, yeah.
There was once prior to just like sort of early, about 5 or so plus years before World War II, right? So the idea was, due to the recessions and depression, stuff like that, they just like, hey, farmers in WA, can you just plant as much grain and as you possibly can? They're like, sure. So they did. And the emus were like, fuck yeah, and golloped that shit up. Then there was too many emus, and all the emus are just destroying everything. They're like, Australian Army, can you please help us? Because there's emus everywhere. They then proceeded.
So it was just a big cull.
It
was. They just had to call in the army.
It should have been, but it wasn't, because the amount of rounds per dead birds was ridiculous.
Were they flying down and bombing them or something? Or?
The birds won.
Of course they did.
Yeah, and then once again, around World War II, it happened again, so they had to grow all the grain and whatever. Emus came back. They're like, Army, can you help us out? We're like, we're a bit fucking busy right now, all right? It's a Second World War. Can you sort it out yourself? Birds overran it. Absolutely overran it.
But I wonder if it'll happen again now.
One can only hope, because it's a good story.
Hopefully we win this time.
Oh, I doubt it. No, but it's like for birds that cannot fly, that to just run really fast, the death toll of the birds was
to be fair, they are
minimal.
Terrifying.
They are horrifying. Like, I just imagine like Gatling guns in the back of a Jeep, like, and somehow still not dying. Like, is this feather of theirs impenetrable? Completely side conversation about PlayStation, by the way. How are you, Max?
Solid start to the PlayStation session.
I know.
Yeah, no, I'm not too bad, man.
That's good. Well,
I've been home for 2 days and I'm already sick of it.
Well, as I said at the start of the show, we are now going remote. So Max is in his little home office space. I'm here in the studio. It does break my heart, because Max is very clean, I'm very clean, but we need to follow those rules. And as we said, the fine is quite expensive. So I have no desire to pay Max's fine.
Yeah, I can't get away with just hiding like a bag of groceries in my car and be like, hey, look, I just went shopping, man. That's all I was doing.
Yeah, it's a tough call, but it's a smart call because like I have shitty neighbors, and one of them probably dogged me in. They're like, "Who's the person?" And the next thing you know. But so what else has been news, man? Anything exciting? Anything exciting?
Yeah, not really, to be honest. I mean, I'm enjoying my long weekend because I got obviously Friday and Monday off, so that was a nice break. I really needed that. But other than that, still working every other day. We're getting there.
Yeah, no. So I had Monday off this week for WrestleMania, so I only had a 3-day week this week, which is fantastic. Ryan Get Less Fat update. Slight problem with the less, because I'm not going to work. There's less exercising. Have gone back a little bit, just about under a kilo. But it's now going the other way, which is good. So it's going back down. So. For those that I said, by next week I'll be fucking 10 kilos. Yeah, it didn't happen, mate. It didn't happen.
Yeah, it happened to me on Friday because I do on average 10 to 15 Ks of walking while I'm at work. Because I didn't work Friday, I'm like, I need to do something. I'm like, Ali, stand on my feet and I'll just do some crunches in the lounge room.
Look, I have been really good. I have been trying to do walks during the day. So like I do I found the perfect half an hour walk. The only downside is I couldn't do it today because today's weather is anus. So we got halfway through the walk and then it just started pelting rain. So we had to hike it back home, which is, not so
Got your run in.
It did. So I did get a little bit of a minor workout as I prepared to hike my son, like just like under my arm like a football and just banging it. But that's all good.
Nice.
No, I have a feeling I know the answer to this, Max, because I think it's the only thing that it's the same answer for me. What have you been playing this week?
So I've been playing a little bit of Divinity 2.
Oh, that's not what I expected.
Just got off Rocket League before coming to record, and then I think I spent about 45 hours with Final Fantasy VII.
Jesus, that's pretty good. But we're going to talk about Final Fantasy VII a little bit later because that is the main topic of the show today. But similar to yourself, Max, my week has been primarily Final Fantasy. Persona's still on there. It's still installed. Haven't touched it yet. Final Fantasy's really taken my time.
Persona 5 is currently in my PlayStation, but I have not dived back into it yet, or dove back into it yet.
Well, because I said, we'll get Final Fantasy a little bit later. But anyway, that's not about what we've been up to, Max, or stories about emus or other weird shit. Let's get in the section we call Inform the Players. We tell you about what happened this week in PlayStation.
Yeah, so this week, Sony decided to, on a random Tuesday evening, officially revealed the PlayStation 5 controller named the DualSense. Features a create button instead of a PlayStation 4's share functionality and has a built-in microphone which negates the need for a headset. So that'll be interesting.
Oh, that's going to be so gross. I can picture it now. Just horrible,
apparently it's
horrible audio everywhere.
Apparently it's got 3 separate microphones in it, and it has like a voice recognition, so it'll drown out anything that's not your voice.
That also sounds very creepy.
Yeah. So Sony confirms that the DualSense will support adaptive triggers, while, quote, the sense of touch appears to play a key part in its design. Blending the colors of black and white together, the PS5 controller will sport a strong, rechargeable battery life, while the L2 and R2 triggers have been slightly smoothed. It is also said to be fairly light despite the addition of new features. The light bar actually does make its return, this time positioned on the sides of the touchpad instead of the top. Interestingly, the 4 face buttons no longer have colors associated with them.
Okay, so aesthetically, this is the big thing that everyone has an issue with. So we're going to break it bit by bit because there's a lot. Yeah. A big hunk of the news this week is pretty much this controller. So, the adaptive triggers, this is not new news. We've known about this since that Wired article way back when. I still like it, but in terms of the aesthetic design, it looks like a bit of an Xbox One controller spliced with a PlayStation controller.
Not gonna lie, I'm looking forward to it. I like the new design.
Yeah, so it's using this almost Detroit Become Human-esque color scheme with the white and the black. It kind of looks a little bit like what the character whose name I can't think of right now, the main robo.
Evan?
Evan? Ethan?
Ethan? No, Ethan's... No.
I don't think it's any of them. Connor is his name, by the way.
Connor is his
You weren't
name,
even
yes.
close. Dash did correct me in the chat as well. And Simon in the chat as well, because you too can join us in the chat for twitch.tv/the PopCulturists. He goes, I love the DualSense design. Makes me want a PlayStation. I personally, I look at it, I'm like, I wish it was black. That's kind of where I'm at. But that's just because I like that design. I like the all black. However, it also makes me think about how the console itself will be designed aesthetically to match the controller. That is not what I'm cool on right now. Saying that though, our good friend Ethan at Tag Mods has been like, want me to paint it purple? So I'm like, yeah. So the day I get it, we're going to pull that shit apart and we're going to repaint it.
Fair enough. I don't know. I kind of like the look of it. The look of the box generally doesn't make a difference to me. It's normally hidden away in a TV unit or as it stands in my study at the moment, it's hidden behind all my monitors. You can't. So having it doesn't really matter to me if the PlayStation console itself is black and white.
Yeah, it's true. Like it will look visually appealing. Like
unless it comes out looking like a piece of Top Deck chocolate,
which
in that
ain't a
case, that would
bad
be
thing. Top Deck is delicious. Or maybe like the almost soon to be re-released Marble, bit of black and white mixed in. You know what I'm saying?
So keen for that.
My wife is so excited for Marble coming back next week. Let me tell you. Simon in the chat goes, surely there'll be a all black option though. I get it in time, but at launch they normally stay to the same color for at least, I don't know, months. It's not going to be around like a straight up thing, which is
at least if you want to repaint it, having it a base of white will make it a lot easier.
Very much so. So I'll get two. I'll keep one traditional, and then we'll crank open one and fuck with it. Where Cass goes, I like the traditional PS controller, but Dash is pretty confident. He's put his balls out there and saying, I guarantee there will be a black one at launch.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah, I tend to agree with Dash here. I think there will be a black at launch.
I think going from the feedback alone of the announcement here, I think they would likely make it happen.
Yeah, the internet got real mad.
Yeah, real mad is probably the wrong reaction to have, to be honest.
Yeah.
What other things can this bad boy do?
So, obviously, immersion also plays a large part in the DualSense controller, aided by the implementation of the haptic feedback. This is a feature which can emulate the tension of a bow pull in Horizon Zero Dawn or the grittiness of driving a car through mud. This all adds up to, quote, offering game creators the ability to explore how they can heighten the feeling of immersion through our new controller. Even the grips have seen some love, which we assume allows players to get a better feel for the DualSense during these tense moments of gameplay.
You know, that's quotes we've heard before about the whole restring of a bow and a rumble, you know, how it feels in the hand. I'm excited because if anything, it's going to be similar to like the HD rumble in the Switch, which I'm oddly not impressed by on a day-to-day gaming basis. Like it was cool in the likes of like 1-2 Switch, but in terms of implementation across the board, it's just been treated as rumble.
I mean, that generally is what happens with controller features. They'll be used for a few key games, and then it just becomes standard.
Yeah. So that's my worry, at least initially. I think obviously the first parties will get gritty in there, but
I'd love some haptic feedback on like a Bloodborne or something. So when I'm swinging my sword, I can feel it tense as it hits the enemy.
That's a good idea, yeah.
Give me some feeling.
Or even as you go for the dive, it rumbles because when you hit the ground, like a little bit of a some minor feedback. That'd be pretty cool. And like you're able to get those minor feedback compared to the physical motors that are in the current rumble of the DualShock. It's because it is literally a little weighted motor that spins.
So on the PlayStation blog, Jim Ryan states, quote, DualSense marks a radical departure from our previous controller offerings and capability and captures just how strongly we feel about making a generational leap with the PlayStation 5. The new controller, along with many innovative features in PS5, will be transformative for games, continuing our mission at PlayStation to push the boundaries of play now and in the future. To the PlayStation community, I truly want to thank you for sharing this exciting journey with us as we head toward PS5's launch in holiday 2020.
Yeah, still aiming for that holiday window.
I think they have to. Like, they've really got to stay positive that they can pull this out, because if Microsoft do have the jump on them and they release their console a few months before Sony, I think they'll have an issue.
Yeah, and I discussed this with Dash on the Dash Gamer podcast, which you can go check out on your podcast services as well. He and I talked about the idea of the messaging on all these delays that are going to happen, and like why some things aren't being delayed now and it's coming later. Because it's one of those decisions of once you make that call, you're done. Like, that has to be what happens. So yeah. I think it'll be until the absolute last moment when someone will make that call. And here, they'll do their very best to ensure that, like, until maybe August or October, they're like, yeah, we're not going to. Or until Xbox pull the pin first. Like, the only reason they would jump on and get in there.
So, by including a microphone as part of the PlayStation 5's new DualSense controller, Sony is making voice chat easier than it's ever been before. Of course, with a low barrier for entry comes the potential for irritation, as gamers can be known to play loud, obnoxious music and have personal conversations in the lobbies of online titles.
Yeah.
Fortunately, though, the Japanese giant has a solution which will at least help to eliminate some background noise. As part of a patent filed in February and published this week, the manufacturer explained how its new pad's, quote, microphone array will operate. Quote, captured sound can be processed to exclude sounds which do not emanate from a certain region of the interactive environment, the document illustrates. Effectively, the 3 included microphones can detect the position of sounds, cancelling out any noises that aren't coming directly from the primary user. This also helps to eliminate crosstalk, which could occur when 2 players are using pads in a local environment. Quote, the captured audio data from the multiple controllers can do this.
So it's like an adaptable noise gate almost.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how well it works. I'm a little bit skeptical. And most people these days own headsets with microphones. I can't see anyone giving those up in favor of my controller has a microphone now, so I don't need to buy a headset.
Yeah, I think that you pretty much mentioned there the obnoxiousness of many players who would just have the most like worst SoundCloud rap in the background, and that is the concern. And that anytime you're in any lobby ever, it's the first thing you do. You mute everyone that isn't your friends because it's guaranteed to be horrible. Because we're gonna hear like parents yelling at 11-year-olds. You'd be like, "Mom, no, it's a bloody game." That's what you're gonna hear. And the problem is, yes, it might isolate the background noise, but you'll still hear that person yelling crystal clear. I like the idea. It's kind of to reduce the need for those to feel they have to buy all these probably additional bits of tech for a shared experience. So I think it's a positive that they are looking towards that multiplayer shared experience, but adapting it ever so slightly.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how well it works.
One thing in the chat, Simon adds, he goes, SoundCloud rap, yeah. And better to have the advanced immersion as an option for devs, even if it's not widely used.
Yeah, it's always better to have something there in case someone wants to use it than to not have it at all.
Correct.
So I think he mentioned that when we were talking about the haptic triggers.
Yes, pretty much. Yes. Sorry, my phone just started yelling at me. But yes, no, that's 100% true. But from all accounts, devs are pretty stoked on it right now.
Yeah, so Sony's been shipping the final version of the DualSense controller to PlayStation 5 developers, and now it's been announced some hands-on impressions are beginning to emerge online. Bethesda's Pete Hines is one such person to go on record stating he's been very impressed with the haptic feedback and adaptive triggers. He continues, quote, I think games are going to do some really cool things with them. Imagine lockpicking in a PS5 version of Fallout where the triggers tighten and the controller pulsates as you find the sweet spot. Or how about drawing an arrow in the Elder Scrolls 6, where the R2 button fights back as the string gets taut. Immersive stuff.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. it has potential. I think it just depends on how well it's implemented by the developers. Like, not everything needs it. Don't throw it at everything and see what sticks.
What would be your short list of things that would benefit from it, apart from the obvious bows and driving through mud that we keep seeing.
I want it in Mortal Kombat. I want to be able to feel as I'm hitting. Any combat based game where I'm hitting something would be good. I think the driving one's obviously a really good one. The bowstrings. It's hard to say.
Yeah, it's one of those things like until you see it delivered.
Because there's the really obvious stuff, but then I wouldn't have thought about the lock picking in a game, having it. So hopefully they do some really cool stuff with it,
or even just like the subtle feedback of firing a gun. Because right now, if you want to play the Division, every gun rumbles the same. Like a pistol will rumble the same as a rocket launcher or something. Where here you get you will be able to get a drastic difference in the weaponry, which I think would be a cool little touch as well. To add to the aesthetic stuff, Simon adds, also a console aesthetic based on the new controller will help separate it further from the new Xbox design. And that is very true, because as we've seen with the Series X, it is a black
refrigerator,
which ain't a bad thing. But I personally like the design of it. I like that simplicity to it. I say that, but I have a fucking obnoxiously purple PS4.
Yes.
So I can't be like, oh, I like a simple aesthetic, and mine has a fucking axe in it. It's a tough line.
So I think that's it for the controller.
But yeah, overall, what are your thoughts on the controller, Max?
Look, I like the look of it. I actually really like the two-tone design of the white on the black. I think it looks slightly larger, so I think it's going to fit in my hand a little bit better. I must admit, I do prefer the Xbox controller over the PlayStation controller, so I use a scuff here at home. So it's slightly wider.
Shift it to your right a little bit. There you go. People can see it now.
So it's slightly wider than your standard DualShock, and I find that just a little bit more comfortable to hold on to. So I like the design changes that they've given us here.
See, I would agree with that as well. Like, so when I've used the likes of the Thrustmaster or the eSwap controller, as well as the Raiju Tournament Edition, both of those are more in line to the size of Xbox One controller. It's thicker, it's chunkier. The one concern I have about the information they mentioned here, that they've tried to make the controller lighter. I'm not a big fan of a light controller. I think a bit of weight is necessary, and the bigger footprint will probably allow them to have a lot more gear in it. So if you were to pull apart a PS4 controller right now, it's really not much. It's a circuit board with a couple of mesh buttons and the literal motors. So there is a lot of potential in there once you remove those motors and add that haptic-y stuff in there. I'm interested to see how it goes. I'm also interested to see how this controller works with VR. If VR will, still use the light sensor.
Yeah, because they did say the light bar returned, but it's on the side of the touchpad.
Yeah, so if you're holding it directly towards the VR, it's not going to pick it up. So I think it's more of an aesthetic choice now rather than a functional choice. So although the PS5 will presumably support a PS4 controller for backwards compatibility, therefore you will need to use it in order to play those older PS4 games, because it does have the touchpad as well. That's returned. I've seen some people not be happy with the return of that. Not too phased. Touchpad's great.
It doesn't bother me. At least it's not a screen.
Yeah, that's certainly true. Because in terms of battery, if this does have a better battery, maybe the haptics allow for a better battery rather than the physical motors. So that overall, I'm pretty stoked on it. Like, even though an all black aesthetic or a two-tone black would be better, it's going to be cool. Like, my original thought was, that white's going to get messy. And then I'm like, wait, it's my child that's grubby. I'm not.
I also, like a lot of people have said, we're now cleaner than ever in the current climate of the world. We shouldn't have that many issues. And I mean, who doesn't clean their hands before they use stuff anyway?
That's true. As friends of the show, Jono said, he's like, yeah, I like to go dig holes with my hands in the garden before I play PlayStation.
I mean, I know that gamers tend to be snacky, but like, come on, guys. How much Dorito dust can you really get on a PlayStation controller?
Challenge accepted. Moving on.
All right, so let's talk some Cyberpunk.
Ooh.
We've known for a while that CD Projekt Red plans on supporting Cyberpunk 2077 post-release with downloadable content. The developer has previously said that the game will follow a similar path to The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which received 2 large expansions within the space of 13 months after its launch in 2015. We now have a little more information regarding the developer's roadmap. In a recent investor call question and answer session, as translated by VGC, CD Projekt Red confirms that at least 2 expansions for Cyberpunk 2077 will be revealed before the game's release date on the 17th of September. Fantastic. And yes, the company remains confident that it will hit the promised date, at least at this point in time. Also, despite the current climate in the world, CD Projekt Red says that Cyberpunk 2077 is still on track for its September 2020 release date. Although employees are now working from home, the studio is confident that the project can go ahead, quote, without any major disruptions. That's according to a new post on the company's official website. Quote, there is no shortage of motivation, and we also possess all the tools needed to facilitate remote work, states Joint CEO Adam Kaczynski. Our plans haven't changed. We're steaming towards the September release of Cyberpunk. Making sure that everything goes according to plan must take some serious organization at this point, so it's impressive that the developer is still banking on Cyberpunk 2077's agreed launch later this year. Of course, the situation could change. We're living in uncertain times.
Cool.
So there's also been news of early copies of Cyberpunk.
Cool.
So day one patches have become an important element of video game releases throughout the PS4 generation, allowing developers to continue improving their titles for launch despite it have already gone gold. Some parts of the gaming community aren't a fan of them, but in the case of Cyberpunk 2077, it sounds like a day one patch is absolutely essential. Alongside the usual bug and glitch fixes with some of these updates, CD Projekt Red has said that some of the game's voice acting may have to be added via the day one patch.
Not cool.
Due to the current climate of the world. Michael Nowalski,
ripper name,
Senior Vice President of Business Development, stated that there have been some difficulties with the localization process due to the closure of studios. Quote, by the moment the customers will actually buy the game in September, they would just download a file which would add the missing pieces of the recordings, but that process has been hampered a little bit. If Cyberpunk 2077 does go the way of Final Fantasy VII Remake, where physical copies were given the green light to be sold early, it's going to be very interesting to see how consumers react to the lack of voice acting for certain sections or characters. That is, if CD Projekt Red does indeed have to proceed with this content rollout, of course. It's also likely to affect review copies. With the Polish studio already claiming that outlets will receive their pre-release codes weeks in advance, the entirety of that time will be spent without the presence of the day one patch. This is only something CD Projekt Red is considering at the time of writing. So this article was written yesterday at the time of recording. However, it may not be a problem as the year progresses.
I'm trying to fathom the words, because one of the biggest problems that people talk about is the idea of day one patches, and now they're like, oh, they're just fixing broken, a game that is incomplete. Well, this is a perfect example of that. Now, understandable, the current circumstances have caused the issue here, so this isn't something that they would probably have done intentionally, but it's not really helping that narrative of, we are reliant on day one patches.
Yeah, so obviously, because it's a localization issue of translation, it does make sense that it would be harder to do from a work from home situation, especially with some of the studios being closed. It's a bizarre situation where they would release, especially for review copies, where you'll just get parts of the game that will have no voice acting whatsoever.
Yeah, we will have to see probably some sort of review in progress set up, but also comes down to how many. Because I said if it's weeks prior to release, that's a lot of time to spend with the game. So, I'm just debating because my concern is that will affect the review of the game. However, as reviewers ourselves, Max, we review based on what we were given at the time, and that is what the game will be at the time.
Yeah, a lot of the times we do get our stuff without day one patches.
Yeah, like Doom we didn't have a day one patch. There's been a couple of other more recent ones as well. I think Resi was fine. Final Fantasy was fine.
Ish.
But in terms of of getting day one patches, I don't think any of them had one, so we weren't too disadvantaged. What's your thoughts on this?
Like I said, it's very interesting. It would be a hard job to review a game when something so important as voice acting is missing.
Yeah,
because it would definitely take away from the experience of the title.
Well, the overall thing with Cyberpunk is that character-driven story, right? And if these characters are unable to speak or present themselves, then like that would be a concern.
Yeah, but obviously with the current climate of the world, it's understandable, but that's just the way it's going to have to be.
But yes, it's either that or delay it. So I guess they're going to make the call and push forward.
And I mean, realistically, if the game doesn't get released early, pushing a day one patch of adding voices in, no one would know the difference. Like no public would know the difference.
Yeah. And the other issue here would be, because when it comes to console versions of games, there is a cost to push patches. So it's not as if it's free like with if it's a full release, then it costs money to every update that you make. So something like Fortnite, because it's still technically in beta, they're able to publish patches whenever they so choose, and it doesn't cost anything towards the developers or the publisher, whichever. So I understand the hesitance to do patches like more frequently. So you'll find the PC versions of games will have a string of patches, and then a little bit later the consoles will get a bundle of all of them together. So it's not as if they can like drop it in as they go. Like say it's 2 weeks out from launch, like, oh, we've got, okay, this character's done, bam. This character's done, bam. It has to be done in a lump, which is going to be a concern, I think.
Well, hopefully everything calms down, and hopefully they can release the game that they want to release when they want to release it.
That's what we hope, anyway.
So Silent Hill just can't stay silent, Ryan.
Oh, and how much can I be happy and then hurt and then be happy again?
It's like riding a roller coaster, mate. There's lots of ups and downs,
but it's a roller coaster of my heart.
So there's a lot going on with Silent Hill at the moment, and it's actually becoming quite difficult to unpack everything. Here's what we think we know.
Not we. Where did you pull this from?
This is from Push Square.
So this is what Push Square think may happen.
So Japan Studio is working on a series reboot for Konami, with Gravity Rush creator Kichiro Toyama directing the project. He obviously started his career working on the original Silent Hill, so he's a superb fit. Artist Masahiro Ito and composer Akira Yamaoka are also said to be involved. Alongside that, there is speculation that Silent Hills will be making a comeback, revived recently by Instagram images posted by manga artist Suhiro Maru. These appear to be separate projects at the moment, and it's unclear how they're connected, if they even exist at all. It's the Sony reboot that currently appears to be further along. According to rumor monger Dust Golem, writing on Reset Era, the title has been in production for 18 months. The story goes that Konami was looking for a partner, and Toyama wanted to return to horror. Sony is footing the project's bill, but it believes brand recognition gives this title a better shot at success. Konami will get a percentage of the profits.
So licensing, cool.
Yeah. So apparently the reboot will be announced this year, presumably alongside the PlayStation 5 slate of in-development software. There's too much smoke here for there not to be something afoot, so it's at this stage we actually believe the rumors are accurate, and a new exclusive Silent Hill really is in development at Japan Studio. Of course, the proof will be in the blood-soaked pudding, so let's just wait before we get our hopes up too high.
This is hurting me, Max. It's hurting me. So there's a lot of good names here in terms of the Silent Hill history, but it's that weird line that it almost sounds too good. Like the idea of a reboot, B, license to Sony, 3, the original people, original directors and original people working on it and stuff like that. And I think that's where it crosses that line to unbelievability. And Konami haven't really shown a precedent to license their IP.
To playing well with others.
Exactly. Because it's just not their focus right now. What's your thoughts? Are you as hesitant as I am, even though I'm willing to be excited?
No. I think with the ups and downs and Konami coming, because we reported on something similar last week with Konami coming out and flat out stating, we are not doing this. It's hard to get excited when more rumors are afoot.
But then again, Edge was pretty adamant that he wasn't returning until he returned to the 2020 Royal Rumble. So he lied like 2 days before, be like, it's not happening. I'm not cleared. I cannot be in there. There he was.
Will I be happy if it comes out? Yes. Am I going to get hyped for it just in case it doesn't? No. I'm gonna play it cool. I'm gonna go media dark on it and just wait until it says, "Hey, I'm here."
It's probably a smart call, really. But
I've been burnt too many times. I can't do it again.
Yeah, there's been so many averagey Silent Hill games that I'm like, even though I love Silent Hill, there's a lot of average games in there, and that kind of makes me hesitant. But all right, cool. One series we know that is doing well, Resident.
Yeah, so we've got some Resident Evil 8 leaks.
So we touched upon Resident Evil 8 a couple of weeks ago. There was some leak, quote unquote leaks back then, and we had to be able to chat about that. It seems very exciting. However, appears to be some more, Max.
So I think some of these we reported on earlier. So this is from Rely on Horror.
That was the source last time.
So that was the same source last time. There is a spoiler warning because there is story related information included in some of the leaks.
Potential spoilers.
Potential spoilers, yeah. So Resident Evil 8 is working under the title Village Resident Evil, although some reports have that title reversed. The VILL part in the title, of course, is RE7'd into the Roman numeral 8. So VIII for the Village part.
Well, I appreciate it, unlike the Call of Duty 4 using Roman numerals that don't exist. So it's a good touch.
The opening of the game will be shocking for longtime fans and involves Chris Redfield. Different demos appear to have different Chris models, some saying he simply looked like an older version of the RE7 Chris, others saying he was completely overhauled. Some tests involved Mia Winters,
the female lead in 7.
Yeah, so some models had her being pregnant, others with a child already having been born.
Okay. Scary babies. That's horrifying.
Ethan is once again the lead protag.
So same guy from 7. Cool.
Same guy from 7. But he has been hardened to a degree. Some testers have described him as being quick-witted and short-tempered. A kind of Ash Williams type, which fits in with RE7's multiple homages to the Evil Dead series. Ethan, as well as the rest of the cast, also seems to have been reprised by their Resident Evil 7 voice performers.
I like that because, in order to try to explain like why Ethan would get involved in this again, he obviously going to have to be more hard, a bit more seasoned. Spoilers to Resident Evil 7. It does end with I think it's the Umbrella Corps getting involved at the back end of it, or at least with the introduction of Chris Redfield, it does fit the overall narrative of Resident Evil. So maybe he's involved in that, or STARS, or one of those organizations within Resident Evil. Maybe that's how he's become more seasoned.
So multiple versions of the in-game inventory have been tested, ranging from something very close to Resident Evil 7's more traditional inventory to something along the lines of Resident Evil 4's attachment case Tetris design. The game is also following suit with Resident Evil 7's first-person design. So hopefully that means we could get a VR mode again.
I really enjoyed because I bought Resident Evil 4 after I played Resident Evil 2 to play it again, and I have brought it back into the studio where the PlayStation lives. So like, maybe. And I do love that Tetrisy design of the inventory because it allows for a lot of. You can carry more if you play it smart.
Yes, correct. The demo was indeed set in a snowy village area sometime after the opening. Playing as Ethan, we explore some of the houses on the outskirts, attempting to make contact. NPCs occupy the houses, however, they are reluctant to talk to an outsider. Note, they do speak English when they talk.
So this is following on from the rumors previously was about this idea of a European sort of feel, very similar to 4, and the idea of like I want to say Scandinavian, but that's probably not the correct example. It's like so medieval-esque setup. So that's cool.
The quote, wolf-like creatures reported in earlier leaks have been described as something akin to beastmen. They attack with massive claws. There is an escape sequence where some versions of the demo you don't have access to a weapon and are forced to either just book it for safety or try to sneak your way around them, similar to Revelations 2. In other demos, you have had a pistol, but it's completely ineffective against these creatures. So you're similarly forced to run and hide.
Okay.
You eventually stumble upon a shotgun and are able to barricade doors to slow down your attackers. The shotgun is more effective than the handgun, however, the beastmen were very bullet spongy. In some versions of the demo, a bell rings and the beastmen will disappear. In others, they are called off by something or someone unseen.
Sweet. I like the idea of these because this is another thing that was hinted on, the idea of more supernatural feels, whether that be in the likes of werewolves or like I guess it's adding to that Van Helsing-esque feel. I guess. Yeah, it's cool. Also, hey Sarah, happy birthday.
The game is massively inspired by a combination of Resident Evil 4 and the much-beloved Resident Evil 3.5, a series of demos and trailers from various scrapped versions of RE4. The previously reported serious departure relates to this, as the game has an obvious focus on the something more supernatural. That said, odds are against things being literally supernatural and that they only appear that way due to viral-induced hallucinations, which is how it worked in Resident Evil 3.5. The hallucinations make it difficult to trust and can trigger flashbacks, with some versions of the demo having that shocking opening appear as a flashback hallucination.
Sick. I am just the whole idea of the supernatural feel makes me really kind of like excited.
So the leaders of these beastmen appear to be stalker-type women that resemble a witch who haunts Ethan during the demo, and a massive gorilla-like monster man with chains and a staff. The witch cannot be killed and melts down into bugs when shot. She apparently has a distinctive laugh that lets you know when she's near. Horrifying. Some versions of the demo appear to have you escape to a castle, while others have you meet up with a group of normal human villagers and talk your way into their refuge to hide out from the monsters. One of the villagers inside begins to hallucinate and eventually lashes out and begins to butcher the other villagers.
Brutal.
So yeah, it's going to be...
And that's all the dot points that Rely on Horror have provided for Resident Evil 8.
Yes.
Now, I've added my thoughts as we went, Max. What are you thinking here? Is this getting you all in the loins?
Look, I would like for Capcom to move to another new numbered title of Resident Evil. Don't get me wrong, the Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 remakes were fantastic, but I would like to see something new as after having 2 remakes.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think the next step would be the next numbered variant. And I think that only comes from, there's only so many more remakes they can do, unless they start doing the side spin-offy ones, as you mentioned, like Code Veronica and all stuff like that, which is very unlikely. If anything, they might do 4, but even then 4 is still playable on your PS4 right now. Aside from the tank controls, it's pretty on point. So there is nothing preventing people from playing that now. So... as someone that believes 4 is fantastic, taking the same approach as 4, I'm really liking. How do you think about the aesthetic?
Aesthetically, it sounds rad. I just having it in such an isolated area. It sounds like they're bringing back similar to a Nemesis and Resident Evil 2's Tyrant. We're going to have that stalker-like enemy that pushes us through.
Yeah, and that was touched upon in the old rumors too. Yeah.
So having something like that to up the tension's always good. The introduction of these new possible Beastmen enemies sounds rad. Just moving away and then having them explain it by these could just be hallucinations induced by the virus. I think it's going to be sweet. If it's something similar to what the rumors are and what the leaks are, this could be fantastic.
So I think it's a smart call because with the difficulty around the T virus, or the G virus, whatever the effing virus they want to have, is that it does, create zombie-like creatures, and that has almost been played to death at this point. So I think by having it evoke a different response, but by that mean providing a more supernatural feel, even though it's maybe a slight variant of the same virus, is actually a really smart way to go about it. It'll allow it to stay within lore as well as seem very fresh and new.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a smart call. But there's also mention here that it's very possible that it will come out, that it'll be revealed later in the year, possibly around the PlayStation State of Play ahead of the PS5. So there's 2 bits of good news out of that, really. So I think we'll hear a lot more about this towards the end of the year, I think, with an expected release date in 2021.
Yes.
I imagine it'll be earlier in the year, kind of like 2 and 3 have, because I think they've really catched a good time because it's when nothing else is really going on. So it allows for it to really hold the conversation for the start of the year.
And if these new consoles do release holiday 2020, early 2021 is probably a really good time for them to release as well. Being one of the first playable titles on a new console will be super helpful for them.
I agree.
So some quick bits. No Man's Sky gets mech suits in its latest free update, which is available now.
For those that are still playing it.
For those who are still playing No Man's Sky. Fallout 76 Wastelanders update launches next week on the 15th of April, for those still playing it. And for everyone who's playing Final Fantasy VII, there are 2 Final Fantasy VII Remake dynamic themes available currently if you played the demo and or a PS Plus member.
Now, I'm going to download them just because I like free themes.
I think one theme is if you played the demo and the other theme is if you're a PlayStation Plus member.
Oh, cool. I can tick both those.
Yep.
So, Max, are you going to check out Fallout 70? Did you ever buy Fallout 76?
I played it for 3 days and then went, no, this is no good.
Because I'm debating, right? With it coming out next week, games are pretty quiet-ish right now. I think I may pick it up. I already have Fallout 76, but I think I may download it again, give this Wastelanders a whirl, because one of the biggest complaints that they had, the whole game had, was that the lack of NPCs, and this is the NPC update. So I'm curious to give it a go, to see what any changes made. I'm sure the game still is fucked, but I'm also contemplating right now giving Elder Scrolls Online a go, because it's super cheap.
How about you play Persona 5 Royal?
I should probably play Persona 5 Royal.
Just... yeah.
But yeah. So I'm saying, Max, if you're interested, we could totally check it out. We could talk about it next week.
We could. I'll see if I can find my copy.
Because we are going to be in a state of no much games. It's not a sentence. Not many games because
we're also in April, not March.
What?
You said no March games. We're in April now.
Oh, okay, cool. We are in a state of not many games, and as most of them will be delayed moving forward, very likely. So it's probably one of the situations where we may have to go back to move forward in terms of content. So I think I'm going to dive in on it, even just to make an episode.
Yep.
It's all content, Max. It's all content. Anyway, that's enough of what's been happening this week in news. Max, this is where you get to shine. You get to unleash. This is our section we call Chat to the Players, where we chat to you specifically. And this week we are chatting, Max, about Final Fantasy VII Remake. So full disclosure, Max did pick up his copy. Once it released to the public, a code had been provided to us via Square Enix. So that's how I've been playing it. But let's get talking. Max, it's all on you.
Okay, so Final Fantasy VII Remake, where to begin?
Well, begin with what it is, why it's been remade, all this sort of stuff, and then we'll get
okay,
into
so Final Fantasy VII originally came out on PlayStation 1 in 1997. So this is, 23 years coming? They've remade... Well, remade is an interesting term. So it's not an exact replica of the original Final Fantasy VII, just with prettier graphics and updated gameplay. They have changed quite a significant portion of what I remember, and I only played Final Fantasy VII a few years ago because it's one of those games that I constantly go back to.
What's on your arm?
Yeah, it's on my arm. The changes that they've made are absolutely fantastic, and I feel that this game does justice to its original.
Okay.
I like the changes that they've made in the story progression and how they tell the story. I thoroughly enjoyed that because they've broken it up into a part series, they've got to spend extra time with some of the side characters that kind of get glossed over in the original version of the game, being Jesse, Biggs, Wedge, the members of Avalanche. They dive a lot deeper into their stories. We get to know more about them, and it's absolutely fantastic. Those characters are incredible.
So before we get into this, I've spent just over 12 hours in the game at this point. So I'm about, in terms of the chapter numbering, I'm on chapter 7, I think. So, and there's 18. That's not spoilers. You look at the trophies, there it is. So I am about a third of the way through the game at this point. Max, you finished it. How long did it take you to finish?
It took me 37 and a half hours to finish.
Yeah.
Playing all on normal mode. I didn't drop the difficulty at all. There were a few boss fights that kicked my ass for quite some time until I worked out that I was just being silly and not doing what I was supposed to be doing. So the combat system was reworked into a more action-based combat system akin to the likes of Final Fantasy 15 or Kingdom Hearts. Mm-hmm. So you still have your ATB gauge that allows you to use your items, your magic abilities, your command and materia, and they can only be used once you've filled portions of the bar by either taking damage, dealing damage, or blocking damage. They did add a quote-unquote classic mode, which has the players auto attack for you and auto position and auto block, and all you do is enter commands to use their abilities and magic.
So this, because with the original being a turn-based RPG, game. This is them trying to combine the two.
Yes. I feel that it falls short because it also automatically defaults you to easy mode when you playing classic. So it's basically turns it into a visual novel.
Which isn't a super bad thing.
It's not a super bad thing, but it does take away a lot of the gameplay, which is combat focused. If you wanted to just enjoy the story and you were having trouble with the combat, I mean, classic mode will get you through it. It's definitely not challenging whatsoever. If you wanted, I would say that this is one of those times where playing it on normal mode is the intended way. As pretentious as that sounds, you do get a better, or I feel you would get a better gameplay experience by playing it on normal over classic mode.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe I said the same thing after I played the demo, because I played the demo on all three, on easy, on normal, and on classic. And classic was very much just you can put your controller down and watch it do everything.
Mm.
So if you were just wanting the story, obviously, that is a perfectly fine way to play if all you're after is the story. The materia system has also been changed slightly. It works exactly the same as it did in the original game, where your weapons had materia slots. You slot the materia. If the materia slots were connected, you could boost certain things by joining them together. Some of the materia was renamed for this remake, but works exactly the same way. Other materia are completely new, and some of them were fantastic, the likes of the auto cure. So you can have one of your NPC allies automatically heal you when you take damage. So that's really helpful. Summons have been reworked. They're no longer usable at all times. They're triggered by specific scenario points, so they can't be used in all battles, which is fine. They're really cool to use. Visually, they're fantastic. They've done a fantastic job. I don't want to get too spoilery, but the places that the story goes is very interesting, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing part 2. I'm hoping it doesn't take too long, because I'm very intrigued to see where they're taking this and how they're going to retell the rest of the story.
All right.
So I have had some issues. Now, obviously, I did get my copy 9 days early living in Australia. I went to my local game store and I purchased it and started playing it. So I played without the day one patch. So I've had a few technical hiccups. Most of them were just texture popping issues. Nothing too serious, nothing too game breaking. They didn't happen as often as what I've seen other people complain about on the internet. Mine happened very late in the game, but they were very jarring. They mainly happened when I was looking over the cityscape from high points. There would be this awkward, bland texture, and then all of a sudden everything would just pop in. But other than that, I had no real game-breaking glitches or bugs. What about yourself? How did you find it as someone new to the series?
Okay, so for context, I've never played Final Fantasy VII in my life ever. I have gone on the record many times explaining my disinterest and my disdain is probably a strong word, but like I don't have a lot of love for Final Fantasy, period. So in terms of reviewing this, it was because I knew you love it, Max, and it's a big game and it's a PlayStation exclusive. So they're the reasons that it caught my eye specifically. Overall, like in terms of the 12 hours or the 7 chapters that I've seen with it, I'm really I'm honestly enjoying it. Like the story I'm finding fascinating in terms of pulling it through, because I'm interested to see where these characters go, because I'm finding this to be a very character-driven piece rather than event-focused. Even though there are particular events, it is all about focusing on these very specific characters and their story. Now, as you mentioned, there has been changes to the likes of Biggs and Wedge and Jesse in terms of their involvement in the overall story. I think their involvement has been absolutely fantastic. Like, it really fleshes out the team. So when you do go into these encounters, or you starting to looking at doing these specific events, their motivations seem real. They seem important because these characters seem fleshed out and complete. And one of them is voiced by the guy that plays Badger in Breaking Bad, so I absolutely love hearing Wedge talk for that exact reason.
Yeah, so I was really, really excited when I found out that they play a much bigger role in this game, and you get to learn a lot more about them. Because they are very glossed over in the original. Oh, really? Well,
that does truly suck, because I think they're fantastic characters. Like, even Barrett, even though he is, he's a walking cliche in terms of how he talks and how he delivers, and he speaks very on the nose in regards to the effect of Shinra and their plight towards to nature, to the environment. So the big narrative here, a lot of it is about the idea of industry on the planet. It's kind of the big steering point. But this is pretty common knowledge, right? Because that's what the topic was in the previous.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
So it's not a major spoiler. So there are some issues that I have with these characters, however, but I have a feeling that these issues are probably not entirely valid, only because I know that they are a bias that I have towards this style of game or style of content. So I am not a big fan of anime or how characters, specifically females, are represented within anime. And I also feel that that has come across here as well. With many of the female characters having that very overly bubbly, flirtatious, submissive-esque characters, I really feel that it's kind of at a disadvantage to some of them. Yes, they have moments where they get to be really strong, kick-ass characters, but overall, I feel...
Who are you referencing in general for that? Like, who do you think
the characters
is the most
that
egregious
stand out
of
to
that?
the most to me? Like, Tifa has a lot of that, especially early on. Aerith is pretty much entirely that. Just this whole idea of this big, high, bubbly character, and it's just kind of like, you know... It's one of the big issues that I have around anime is it is this idealistic version of women, quote unquote. So thankfully in Final Fantasy, no one's overly sexualized or anything, but it is one of those things that everyone just wants to bang Cloud apparently. Like, as the hero, everyone just wants to get in his little parachute pants. And that's probably the issue that I have with this as most, because everyone is just straight up wanting to go to town on him. And in terms of when you're trying to connect to a main character, even though at this moment in time, Cloud is incredibly boring and bland with minor nuances that kind of make him intriguing, but it's this weird line of like, oh, okay, he's the hero, therefore everyone wants to bang him.
Yeah.
And
that's fair enough.
And that I have an issue with in terms of a storytelling perspective, as a storytelling trope in general, right? So that's what I have a problem with.
Well, they address Jessie's reasoning. I don't know if you're there yet.
Yeah, they mention early on because as she sees everything as a play and it's all a game.
Yeah.
Which they address that like reasonably early on.
Yeah.
However, so additionally to that, so the gameplay, I find the gameplay tight as hell. I really enjoyed the more action-based combat. I find it's it's a good balance, right? So with the addition of the rolling and the dodging, I'm actually more considerate about how I'm attacking. So, a couple of stabs in, dodge out of the way. It's all about building up that ATB bar for me.
So do you primarily play... when you've got a party of characters, are you primarily playing and controlling Cloud?
No, I'm impressively changing characters. I thought I would be, as you mentioned, I thought I would really focus on Cloud and let the rest do whatever. But there are times where I will be getting the ATB up, ready to go for Cloud, jump over to Barrett or whoever, and build them up, and then go over to Tifa as an example and get her built up, so that I can deliver a consecutive 3 ATB abilities. So for me, it's balancing the ATB meter as well as ensuring that everyone's or keeping someone always at least 1 bar. So if I get jacked up, someone's able to pop health, and I'm having a lot of fun switching between the two, and they all play differently because like any sort of aerial enemies, it's safer to play as Barrett because he can shoot them without having to get airborne himself. Where anything grounded, you've got Cloud getting in there, and with Aerith being more of a controlling character, for her to keep her back and focus her on heals and sort of area effects.
Well, I noticed that the AI tended to attack the player-controlled character more often than not.
Yeah.
So I would find that when I was low on HP, I'd duck out and dip to a different party member. And that would allow... that would kind of take the aggro off the player that had the lower HP.
Yeah, I certainly found that too. So like however, not every circumstance was the case. Where some of them would just fuck everyone up. But what I really enjoy, one thing I guess I wouldn't enjoy is probably the wrong word, but one thing I liked is because as the additional characters, they're not going to start using their abilities or start using items willy-nilly, right? They will only use them if you initiate them or if you put on like an auto cure, as you said.
Yes.
So majority of the time you are required to do the abilities, to do the spells. They won't do them themselves. So when you aren't playing as Barrett, he's not going to use Thunder spell or whatever comes standard with him, right?
Well, I think the reason I think the reason for that is obviously the addition of the classic mode where they try and emulate that turn-based system. So it would be hard for them to put in some AI for the other players in your party to do their own thing. Because obviously it would be quite frustrating if you're like, okay, so my spare characters have a single use of ATB, but they've decided to use their special ability instead of heal. And now
that was
dead.
my point. That's why I enjoy it. Like that's why I like it, because it allows me to play more tactically. Now, granted, there are times where I'm getting my fucking ass handed to me, and it would really benefit if them to pick up and sort of take that initiative for me. However, I enjoy that switching between the characters and planning how I attack something, which I really like. Visually, the game is 80% of the time absolutely stunning. If you are any of the main characters, if you're in a cutscene, it is astounding. However, side characters commonly look like trash. Their lip syncs out, their facial movements are off. I had notorious texture pop in all the time. Specifically, an example would be in the Sector 7 slums. When you reach 7th Heaven, there were times where the whole building didn't quite render. So I stood there and waited. I'm like, and there it goes.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure I caught the video so I can find it.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I never had any, like I said, I never had any horrendous texture pop-ins. They were mainly when I was overlooking the cityscape as a whole. The whole city literally popped in at once.
Oh, brutal.
I obviously the primary characters do look absolutely stunning compared to the secondary characters. I did notice a few of the lip sync issues. I wonder if that has been fixed with the day one patch.
Yeah.
I haven't gone back to it since I finished it. I finished it just after its essential midnight launch. Yep. I think I finished it about 20 minutes after it officially launched.
One thing I want to mention as well with this game is the scope, right? So, as you mentioned, because this is a small portion of the overall Final Fantasy VII experience, when you take into account the original, the scope of this has been very locked down. And my understanding is that it is pretty much until Midgar, right? Like once you leave Midgar, that's at the end of the game. Like in the original, it's when you go into the open world. So, not really a spoiler. It's kind of a understandable endpoint, right? So that's not too bad. Gaming with Andrew in the chat says, hey. Also, the Real Beast here says, hey man, how you doing?
So I found that this Midgar felt much more lived in than that of its original counterpart.
Yeah, so that's what I mean, like in terms of the scope, because it looks as if a big hunk of this has actually been rendered, like in terms of it's not just being a standard cut and paste. The attention to detail here is way higher than I originally anticipated, and with that scope, it comes from looking across talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake. They're asking in the chat what we're chatting about. So an example is when you're in the plate area and you're looking down at the slums, and like almost it's not one for one rendered, like it is clearly it might be a plate, but it might just be a standard texture. But looking down, it looks very cool to see all the minor details of each individual area. That makes sense. But yeah, one thing that I find interesting as well in terms of design is a lot of the main characters, like your Clouds and your Tifa and Aerith, they look very anime in terms of their facial structure, like with their eye, the way their eyes are shaped, because, as we know, the anime characters have bigger eyes than the rest of their head. It's this interesting design. I found that side characters didn't. They looked much more human. They looked more generic human, right? So I think that was interesting, a decision. What's your thoughts on that?
See, because what they look like now is how I pictured them when I played the game the first time.
Okay.
So for me, that's how they're supposed to look.
Okay.
It would be odd for them to look any different. So it depends.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell.
It's not too bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, overall is that I'm really enjoying my time with it. It's not, because it isn't my regular it's not my regular game of choice. So I'm enjoying spending time with it because it's something different for me personally, right?
Yeah.
No, it's all right. Like, although we don't rate games here or anything like that, but I would rate it pretty high from what I'm experiencing of it so far.
Yeah, I'm the same.
But yeah, let us know what you think at home about Final Fantasy VII Remake. Let us know in the chat, or not the chat, or the comments, or the social medias, however you want to. Because I have a feeling this is a massive game, especially within the PlayStation audience. I think it's a great thing for us to chat about. It's good stuff. All right,
Yeah.
Max, moving on to the next section of the show. I'm gonna have to tend to chat for just a moment. You there, Max?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, keep chatting. Let's bring in the next section.
The drop. So this is games coming out for the week of April 14th. So again, this is the US PlayStation blog, so some dates will differ for us here in Australia. Some games may not come out at all. First off, kicking it off, we have AFL Evolution 2, PS4 Digital, April 16th, but I believe that got brought forward and is already available. We have Blind Men, PS4, PS Vita, Digital Cross-Buy. Crash and the Boys Street Challenge, PS4 Digital, out April 16th. Double Dragon, PS4 Digital, out April 16th. Double Dragon 2, PS4 Digital, out April 16th.
Mm-hmm.
Double Dragon 3, PS4 Digital, out April 16th. You can see where this is going. Fishing Sim World Pro Tour Collector's Edition, PS4 Digital and Retail, out April 15th. Freak Out Calamity TV Show, PS4 Digital, out April 17th. Renegade, PS4 Digital, out April 16th. River City Ransom, PS4 Digital, out April 16th. Spider Solitaire, PS4 Digital, out April 16th. And that's all there is this week. It's scary when the biggest game of the week is AFL Revolution 2.
Pretty much, eh? There's not a whole lot going on. It is a pretty quiet window of time, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty quiet for the next few.
Yeah, pretty much. We've had a bit of chaos in the chat, but thankfully Dash has come in to sort it out. Just classic people being shit. So that's exciting. But anyway, that does bring us to the end of the show, Max. Let's wrap it up like we always do. This PlayStation conversation. Oh, that's your part. You do this first, eh?
Yeah, so this
Hey,
PlayStation
Steven.
conversation happens every Monday morning at 8 a.m. on podcast services, and including Spotify, and 9 a.m. on those YouTubes. If you'd like to join in future PlayStation conversations, head on over to our Facebook, our Discord, Twitter, Instagram. All the links are in the description below.
If you want to join the conversation as it happens, head over to twitch.tv/thepopculturists, where you can watch us record this show live, as well as our other show, The Young and the Wrestlers. One thing we like to do, if you enjoy your time watching this show or listening to this show, be sure to tell your friends, tell your family, share the conversation, go to your podcast service of choice, star ratings, etc., etc. What else is there? Nope, no. Share the conversation, watch us live. If you want to support, I know it's rough times right now, but if you want to support us financially, head over to patreon.com/thepopculturists, or our merchandise store, popculturist.com/shop, where you can buy shirts and other assorted shit with our logos on it. Big thank you, Max, for joining me remotely this time. It's much appreciated.
Yeah, it's definitely a different vibe.
It's very much a different vibe. It's not quite the same of being in the room, but it's what happens right now. It's the world that we live in, eh?
Yeah, tell me about it.
But anyway, until next week, I'm Ryan Betson,
I'm Max Cooper.
and that was For the Players. For the Players, the PopCulturists PlayStation podcast is fan-supported at patreon.com/thepopculturists. And we'd like to thank our Patreon producers and our Patreon founders for the kindness their support, and their generosity. Our Patreon founders, Alpha Ferret, Craig O'Flaherty, David Chataway, Jesse Stevenson, and Jacob Garner. And our Patreon producers, AJ Abatomi, Damien Holdies, Kyle Dunn, Lee Wintershoven, Nathan Massetti, Paul James, Pure Mongrel, and Sean Levitt.